Welcome to our September the 27th edition of Gold and Black Live. Sponsors Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. Tom and I will enjoy a meal or two from there from time to time. State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. The weather in Lafayette, if Trent is doing reffing a game tonight, I will be interesting to see whether that happens. They're talking about in Lafayette tonight 50-mile-an-hour winds, a boatload of rain, but I think the weather is going to be okay. Tom, Dienhart, for tomorrow's matchup between Purdue and Nebraska. We'll get that to the second. Also on this show today, Coach Matt Painter will join us after Mr. Dienhart, and then Ken Halpin, too, from the Purdue Deputy Athletic Director. So we've got an action-packed show, but Tom, you get to lead it off talking about your favorite thing that you talk about all week, Purdue football. The Boilermakers take on Nebraska. Really will be an interesting game because you don't know the mindset of either team, really. Purdue obviously has been very disappointing the last 2 weeks. Nebraska comes off a very disappointing loss in overtime to Illinois. What do you think we see tomorrow starting at noon?
Man, I am the opening act for two heavyweights there, Alex.
Yeah, there you go.
Who knows? I mean, my goodness, I was eager to see what the response was going to be last weekend.
Yes. Yeah.
Coming off the 66-7 debacle against the Fighting Irish and 38-21, Allen, at Oregon State, a disappointing effort. It looked promising early, but, the problems are numerous, and we don't have enough time to sit here and dissect them all. But just, real quick, for me, the bigger disappointment between offense and defense this year has been the offense. I really thought that was going to be a strength. And I know they don't have their purported two best receivers. They're not going to play Saturday, Jamal Edrin and C.J. Smith. But still, I guess I thought there was enough there to still make this a solid attack, Allen, especially with the veteran quarterback and a line that was improved and Devin Mockabee in the backfield and a nice group of tight ends. It hasn't materialized. And I guess there's two major areas there for me that stand out as to reasons why they've really struggled. One is that inability, Allen, to stay on the field on third downs. Yeah. I think they're 17th out of an 18-team Big Ten in third down conversion rates, about 30%. And also, Allen, the passing game. We've talked about this. We've texted about this. You did some historical research for me. The cradle of quarterbacks has been deflated. And my point was going to be explosive plays in the pass game. They're 17th out of 18 teams. Pass plays of 10 yards or more. There's just no big plays in the pass game, Allen. And you can't stay on the field. You can't hit big pass plays. By and large, you're going to really struggle as an offense. And those two things, I think, have really been at the heart of the Boilermakers' struggles to move the ball and score points.
Yeah, the 57-yard passing last week, the lowest since 2010. I was going to bring up Sean Robinson because he was the quarterback back then. But no, Hudson Card, it came in with what's just strange is you have a 24-for-25 game. I understand it was Indiana State. Purdue executed really flawlessly in what was a glorified scrimmage. I get that. But it was been pretty stunning that their inability to, last week it was the 32-yard pass to Max Clare, and that's about it. I mean, I don't know and Nebraska, from a schematic standpoint, I don't know what do you see from the Huskers defensively? They're not great defensively, but they certainly weren't all that bad. Though Luke Altmaier had a big game last week, but this is a defense that in a lot and an energized outfit in Nebraska that's going to cause some problems for Purdue.
Yeah, against Notre Dame, Allen, Purdue did not cross midfield, I don't think, until the third quarter of that ball game.
Yeah.
Just to further illustrate the struggles. Not that we keep beating this dead horse. Yeah. Fans are probably sick of it. But, Nebraska, you're right, Allen. Solid defensively. The game plan for Illinois, physical offense they've got, was they wanted to wear down the Nebraska front. They got a pretty good front, Nebraska. There's two big defensive tackles. Two Coke machines, I always like to call them. And they stayed on the field. They had the ball for, I think, 18 minutes in the second half, and they ground them down and wore them down, and they took advantage of that in the second half, and then in overtime, of course, too. So, Maybe that's a blueprint of sorts for Purdue. If they've been able to hang their hat on one thing in West Lafayette, it's that ability to run the football. We've seen it. I wrote about it this week. They didn't do well against Notre Dame in any phase, even running the football, but against Indiana State and up in Corvallis, Allen, they ran very well. Mockabee looks like he's got vintage 2022 Mockabee. He's hanging on to the ball. That fumble was not his fault in the first quarter last week. He always runs with purpose and heart, right? And boy, he's got that again, 168 yards last week. So maybe they can try to grind down Nebraska. But you got to think, Al, Nebraska's going to, they know that they're going to commit to stopping the run. And hey, they're going to say, hey, Purdue, throw the ball to beat us. Throw the ball to beat us. And that's probably what the Huskers are going to do. And Alan, I think if Purdue's going to want to win, they're going to have to be able to throw the football at least to some degree of success Saturday.
Yeah, just when you think things are certain in college football, something changes. Purdue's a double-digit underdog at home. That hasn't happened since 2018. And yet, again, Purdue's kind of at least, and we watch this closely and kind of as the term of the week, sit in it a lot, and you look at it and say there's no hope. But that just isn't true. This is a bunch of college guys, and Hudson Card, you have to think, wants to prove that what he's all about. And the fact that here's a guy that has to have professional aspirations at some level. And he's a team guy. He's a guy that you want to get it done if you're him. The receivers also, that was what's interesting in week one. They certainly executed well. I know Jamal Edrin was in that game, but you have to think somebody's got to step up in that wide out room or slot receiver outside of the tight ends if you're going to have success.
Yeah, there's always hope, right, Alan? And who knows? Like we talk about this every week, the craziness of college football from a week-to-week basis. You never know what's going to happen. So yeah, there's always hope here. The urgency has gotten more real for Purdue, obviously, at 1-2. They don't want to be 1-3 as they go to Wisconsin to open up October. And then they go to Illinois after that, Alan. So, yeah, you circled back the wide receiving core. I think that is X marks the spot.
Yeah.
This Purdue offense. What do you got, man? If you're the Nebraska defensive coordinator, who do you fear? I don't know. Who's going to step up, Alan? There's plenty of opportunity last week, and it didn't happen. I think in the opener, there were like 10 or 12 guys who called passes.
Right.
Tight ends and obviously running backs. Plenty of wide receivers called passes that day, too, against Indiana State. Cam Brown, the UCLA transfer. Shamar Rigby, the touted freshman they loved in training camp as well. Jaden Dixon-Veal. How about Jerron Tibbs? He was a guy that I know they expected to make that next step this year. And the junior college transfer, too. Alan Leland Smith had that great TD catch. We went up and over a guy against Indiana State. Those are some guys that really have to step up and assert themselves, I think. And also, I think it's incumbent on the offense to be a little bit more creative. I think they've been figured out. Whatever was figured out it's been figured out, Alan. And what's your counterpunch? And I think listening to Ryan Walters on Monday, he alluded to maybe some new wrinkles. Now, you can't rebuild yourself on the fly. We're going to be 4 games in here. You can't reinvent your wheel, but you can introduce some new wrinkles. Let's see what they've got. And I got to think there's going to be something new here because that's going to be key too. Not just the receiver room stepping up, but maybe the offense coming up with some new looks and some wrinkles to try to give Purdue an edge. You know what, Alan? How about finding some mismatches too?
Yeah.
There's weaknesses in that Nebraska defense. Try to find mismatches and take advantage of them. So, hey, man, it's coaching. These guys are paid a lot of money to figure this stuff out, and this is it. And this is when you earn your money as a coach, man, is trying to figure things out and try to give yourself a schematic advantage in some way.
Yeah, you need to see somebody in Nebraska would be that someone tomorrow is the ability to get them on their heels somehow, get them off balance. And Purdue just has not been able to do that. Didn't need to against Indiana State, or maybe they had Indiana State off balance all day. But in the last 2 games, there have been no signs of really getting somebody in a place where they don't know what to do with you defensively. That's going to be an interesting thing. All right, one thing that's always fun too, and when you have big time college football, Nebraska will come here. There'll be a lot of red here. One would expect, though it's homecoming at Purdue, should be weather permitting, a very full house. It is a sellout. Dylan Raiola is an interesting guy. You know, you watch, it's fun to watch the greats come through. He certainly has, at least a few games in, the look of he's fun to watch. He has talent. He's a true freshman playing in his first road game. But having watched him a little bit this year, he's going to be entertaining to watch. Just if you're a Purdue fan, you don't want it to be too entertaining because this kid has a lot of skill.
Yeah, he came in with a lot of hype as one of the top recruits in America, and he certainly lived up to it, Alan. Of course, the famous Raiola family. Dominic Raiola was a great offensive lineman in Nebraska. So they almost didn't get the kid. At one point, he was committed to Georgia. So they got him, Alan. I'm sure it was a pretty sweet deal to get him out there, but they got him. They got their man. And like I said, he's been very good. You know, skill set wise, he checks about every box, right? He's a big kid, 6'3", about 230. You know, the one thing maybe most impressive is that savvy, that poise in the pocket for somebody so young, how he's almost unflappable for such a young guy. So you're right, man. I think Purdue's got to come after him. I think you got to blitz him. His first road game of his career. Don't let him get comfortable. This is a defense at Purdue that likes to take some risk with blitzes. So there's no doubt, Alan, kind of looking ahead at the quarterbacks, Dylan Raiola. You know, Wisconsin lost their quarterback, Luke Altmaier, you talked about. Best quarterback is going to be Dylan Gabriel from Oregon on that Friday night. You know, Ohio State with Will Howard, Kansas State transfer, Drew Allard, Penn State. So, yeah, though I think, long story short, Raiola is going to be one of the 4 or 5 best quarterbacks Purdue sees all year. And third week in a row, Alan, Purdue's going to face a team coming off a loss. So we talked about Purdue's urgency. Nebraska's got plenty too. They didn't think they were going to lose last week, like you said, on that Friday night to Illinois in OT. They want this one, Alan. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right. We'll look forward to watching that. We'll look forward to your work as well. Make sure you tune in. Predictions will be on the website too here a little bit after this show is over. It'll be always fun to see what happens in Ross-Ade Stadium. All right. We will take a short break and come back with Coach Matt Painter will join us, and we'll talk a little Purdue men's basketball. The Boilermakers started practice this week, and coming off that national championship game, a lot to talk about with the coach. So stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 minutes on Gold and Black Live.